I was 14 when I said it, and I'm 43 now, and I can still see the look on her face. We were in the school cafeteria, and this girl, Sarah, had just gotten braces. She was clearly self-conscious about them, wasn't smiling with her teeth, kept covering her mouth when she talked. And I, in a moment of what I thought was hilarious wit, made a joke about her looking like she had a car grill stuck to her face. My friends laughed. Sarah's face just crumbled. She didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't say anything. Just looked at me with this expression of hurt so pure and complete that it's burned into my brain like a photograph. She got up and left, and I went back to my lunch feeling vaguely uncomfortable but mostly just continuing with my day. That was 29 years ago. I haven't seen Sarah since high school. I apologized the next day, awkwardly, and she said it was fine, but I could tell it wasn't. And I've thought about that moment, that look on her face, probably once a week for almost 3 decades. It'll just surface at random times, in the shower, driving to work, lying in bed at night. And every single time, I feel the same wash of shame and regret, the same wish that I could go back and just not say it, just be a kinder person, just think for 2 seconds before opening my stupid mouth. 29 years, and this memory has never let go of me. That's what I want to talk about, these memories that won't fade, won't soften, won't release their grip no matter how much time passes. We all have them, these moments from our past that play on repeat in our minds, that show up uninvited and unwanted, that feel as fresh and vivid as if they happened yesterday even though they might have happened decades ago. And there's something uniquely tormenting about these persistent memories, the way they can reach across time and pull you right back into that moment, make you feel everything you felt then, make you wish desperately that you could change what happened, even though you know you can't, even though you know the past is fixed and unchangeable and the only thing you can do is keep living with it. Let me tell you what I've learned about why some memories stick while others fade away like morning fog. Because it's not random, there's a pattern to it, a logic to which moments get etched into our brains permanently and which ones dissolve into the general blur of the past. And understanding that pattern doesn't make the memories let go, but it at least helps explain why you're still thinking about that one thing you said at a party 12 years ago while you can't remember what you had for breakfast 3 days ago. The memories that never let go are almost always wrapped in intense emotion. Our brains are designed to prioritize emotional experiences, to encode them more deeply, to make them more accessible for recall. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. If something made you feel strongly, it probably matters for survival. Fear, shame, joy, anger, love, grief, these emotions are markers that tell your brain, pay attention, remember this is important. So moments of high emotion get processed differently than ordinary moments. They get tagged as significant, they get stored with more detail, they get linked to physical sensations and contextual information in ways that mundane memories don't. That's why you can remember exactly where you were and what you were wearing and what the weather was like when you got devastating news, but you can't remember most regular Tuesdays from your life. The devastating news came with an emotional charge that seared it into your memory. The regular Tuesdays were just regular, so your brain didn't bother holding on to them in detail. But it's not just any emotion that creates these persistent memories, it's usually negative emotion, and especially shame, regret, fear, or unresolved pain. Positive memories fade more easily, get softer and hazier around the edges. But the painful ones, the shameful ones, those stay sharp. I think partly this is survival instinct too. Your brain wants you to remember things that hurt you so you can avoid them in the future. Touch a hot stove once, remember it vividly, don't touch hot stoves again. Get humiliated in a certain kind of situation, remember it intensely, avoid that situation going forward. It's a learning mechanism, except it doesn't shut off just because the lesson has been learned. It keeps playing the memory on repeat long after you've already changed your behavior, already learned what there was to learn, already become a different person than you were when the memory was made. I have a friend who, 20 years ago, gave a presentation at work that went badly. He was nervous, he stumbled over his words, he lost his place in his notes, people in the audience were clearly uncomfortable watching him struggle. It was objectively not that big a deal. He wasn't fired, his career didn't end, most people probably forgot about it within a week. But he hasn't forgotten. He still gets a physical reaction when he thinks about it, still feels the heat in his face, still hears his own voice shaking. And he's given hundreds of presentations since then, most of them excellent. He's a confident public speaker now. The early disaster taught him to prepare better, to practice more, to manage his anxiety. He learned the lesson. But the memory hasn't let go. It still shows up, still makes him cringe, still feels as raw as it did 2 decades ago. That's the cruel thing about these memories. They don't care that you've changed, that you've grown, that you're not that person anymore. They don't care that you've learned from the mistake, that you've made amends if amends were possible, that you've spent years being better. The memory is frozen in time, and when it surfaces, it pulls you back to being exactly who you were in that moment. You're not your current self remembering something your past self did. You become your past self again, feeling everything they felt, seeing through their eyes, trapped in their experience. I think that's part of why these memories are so distressing. They violate our sense of continuity, our narrative of growth and progress. We want to believe we're moving forward, becoming wiser, leaving our mistakes behind. But these memories are evidence that the past isn't behind us at all, it's still right here, still active, still able to affect us. We're carrying it with us whether we want to or not, and it can hijack our present moment whenever it chooses to surface. Let me talk about the particular torture of embarrassing memories, because I think these are some of the most persistent and most universally relatable. You're lying in bed trying to fall asleep, and suddenly your brain serves up that time you called your teacher, Mom, in 3rd grade, or tripped in front of your crush in high school, or said something spectacularly stupid at a job interview, or sent an email to the wrong person, or any of 1,000 other moments where you felt exposed and foolish. And even though it might have been years or decades ago, even though no one else probably remembers it, even though objectively it doesn't matter at all, you feel it again. The hot flush of embarrassment, the wish to disappear, the cringing awareness of how you looked to others in that moment. These memories seem to have a special persistence because they violate our desired self-image. We want to be seen as competent, smart, graceful, socially adept. And these embarrassing moments are evidence of times we were none of those things, times we were awkward or foolish or incompetent or socially inept. They're proof that the image we want to project isn't always the reality, and our brains seem to hold on to that proof as if we need to be constantly reminded not to get too comfortable, too confident, too sure of ourselves. There's also something about unresolved experiences that makes memories stick. When something has closure, when there's resolution, when you've processed it and made sense of it and integrated it into your life story, it can fade into the background. But when something is unresolved, when there's no closure, when it doesn't make sense or doesn't fit into your narrative or leaves questions unanswered, it stays active in your mind. Your brain keeps working on it, keeps bringing it up, trying to resolve what can't be resolved, trying to make sense of what doesn't make sense, trying to find closure where none exists. I think about my dad, who died suddenly when I was in my 20s. We'd had a fight a few weeks before he died, one of those stupid arguments about nothing important, and we hadn't quite made up yet. We would have, of course we would have, we always did. But he died before we could. And that unresolved fight, those last words that were said in anger, the apology I never got to give and he never got to give, that's the memory that won't let go. Not the thousands of good moments we had, not the times he taught me things or made me laugh or showed me love. Those memories are there, but they're soft, gentle, distant. The unresolved fight is sharp and immediate and painful, because there's no way to resolve it now. He's gone. The conversation will never happen. The closure will never come. So my brain keeps circling back to it, keeps replaying it, as if maybe this time it'll end differently, as if somehow I can fix it retroactively. I can't, of course I can't, but the memory doesn't care about that logic. Here's another thing about persistent memories. They often involve moments where we violated our own values, where we acted in ways that conflict with who we want to be. I think about that comment I made about Sarah's braces. The reason it haunts me isn't just that I hurt her, though that's terrible enough. It's that I revealed something about myself I don't like, a capacity for casual cruelty, a willingness to get a laugh at someone else's expense, a failure of empathy and kindness. It's evidence of who I was capable of being, and I don't want to be that person, and knowing that I was, that I am, that the capacity for that cruelty is in me, that's deeply unsettling. So the memory persists as a kind of warning, a reminder to be better, to pay attention to how my words affect others, to choose kindness over cleverness. But here's the complicated part. These memories that won't let go, they're not always accurate. Memory is not a video recording, it's a reconstruction, and it changes every time we access it. The emotional charge around the memory stays consistent, but the details can shift. We add things that weren't there, we subtract things that were, we interpret based on what we know now rather than what we knew then, we fill in gaps with assumptions and narratives that may or may not reflect what actually happened. So the memory that's torturing you might not even be entirely true to the original event. It's your brain's version of the event, shaped by years of replay, by your current understanding and biases, by the story you've told yourself about what it meant. I have this memory of my mother being angry at me when I was maybe 6 or 7, yelling at me for something I did wrong, and I remember feeling so small and scared and certain that she didn't love me anymore. And for years, this was a significant painful memory, evidence of how harsh she could be, how scary her anger was. But then as an adult, I mentioned it to her, and she had no memory of it at all. And when I described what I remembered, she said gently that she'd never yelled at me like that she was very careful not to because her own mother had been a yeller and she'd promised herself she wouldn't be. And I realized that what I remembered, the intensity of it, might have been a child's perception of normal parental correction, amplified by my fear and sensitivity, reconstructed over years of remembering until it became something bigger and scarier than what actually happened. That doesn't mean the memory isn't real in terms of its impact on me. The feelings were real, the fear was real, the sense of being small and scared was real. But the event itself might not have been as dramatic as my memory of it. And this is true for a lot of persistent memories. They're real but not necessarily accurate, they're powerful but not necessarily proportional to what actually occurred. We're haunted by our version of events, which may or may not match reality, but feels absolutely true because it's what we remember. Let me talk about trauma specifically, because traumatic memories have particular qualities that make them both persistent and disturbing in ways that other memories aren't. Trauma memories often get encoded differently than normal memories. They're fragmented, sensory, intrusive. They don't have the narrative structure of normal memories, they're more like flashbacks, sudden intense re-experiencing of sensory details, sounds, smells, physical sensations, without the context and perspective that usually accompanies memory. They can be triggered by seemingly random things that your brain has associated with the traumatic event, and when they're triggered, you don't feel like you're remembering something from the past, you feel like you're experiencing it in the present. This is why trauma memories are so difficult to live with and why they won't let go through normal processes of time and perspective. They're not integrated into your life story in a way that allows them to become past events. They stay present, they stay immediate, they stay threatening. Your brain is stuck in survival mode, convinced that the danger is still happening, still needs to be vigilantly monitored and responded to. Therapy for trauma often involves helping the brain reprocess these memories so they can finally become past events instead of perpetual present threats, but it's hard work and the memories don't let go easily. I know someone who was in a serious car accident 15 years ago. She wasn't badly hurt physically, recovered completely within a few months. But the memory of those seconds when she realized the crash was going to happen, when she was completely helpless, when she thought she might die, that memory hasn't let go. She still has panic responses when driving, still gets triggered by certain sounds or situations, still sometimes has dreams where she's back in that moment. 15 years, and her brain still treats that memory like an active threat, still keeps it sharp and accessible and charged with fear, still won't let it fade into the general background of past experiences. Here's something interesting about the memories that haunt us. They're often about moments where we were powerless, where we had no control, where something happened to us or around us that we couldn't prevent or fix. The memory persists partly because our brains are still trying to solve a problem that couldn't be solved, still trying to find a way to have had control in a situation where we had none. It's like a record skip, the brain getting stuck on an impossible problem, replaying the scenario over and over as if maybe this time we'll figure out what we should have done differently, how we could have prevented it, how we could have controlled an uncontrollable situation. I think about my first real heartbreak, a relationship that ended not because of anything dramatic but just because it wasn't working and she was honest enough to end it. I remember the conversation where she broke up with me, remember every word, remember how the light looked in her apartment, remember what I was wearing, remember the sick feeling in my stomach. And I replayed that conversation thousands of times in the months and years afterward, always looking for what I could have said differently, what I could have done to change her mind, how I could have controlled an outcome I had no power to control. She'd made her decision, it was done, but I couldn't accept my powerlessness in it, so the memory kept looping, kept presenting itself as a puzzle I could solve if I just thought about it hard enough. Eventually, it faded. Not completely, I can still access it if I want to, but it lost its charge, lost its ability to hurt me, became just something that happened a long time ago. But for years, it wouldn't let go, and I think it was the powerlessness that made it stick. I needed to accept that I couldn't have controlled it, couldn't have changed it, couldn't have made her love me enough to stay. And until I accepted that powerlessness, the memory had power over me. Let me talk about the memories we wish we could forget but can't, because I think there's something important in understanding why we can't just will these memories away. People sometimes say things like, just let it go, or, just stop thinking about it, or, it's in the past, move on. And if it were that simple, if we could just choose to forget, we would. But memory doesn't work that way. You can't decide what to remember and what to forget. You can't delete specific memories like files on a computer. The more you try not to think about something, the more it tends to surface. It's like telling someone not to think about pink elephants, suddenly that's all they can think about. The brain doesn't have a forget button, and trying to suppress memories often makes them more persistent, not less. There's research on this, on how attempted thought suppression backfires, how trying to push a thought or memory away actually strengthens it, makes it more likely to intrude. So people who are haunted by memories they desperately want to forget often make it worse by fighting the memories, by trying to force them out of consciousness, by beating themselves up for not being able to just move on. What seems to work better is a kind of making peace with the memory, acknowledging it when it surfaces without fighting it or dwelling on it, letting it be there without letting it take over. This is easier said than done, obviously. When a painful memory surfaces, the instinct is to push it away, to distract yourself, to do anything to not feel what it makes you feel. But sometimes the way through is actually allowing yourself to feel it, to acknowledge yes, this happened, yes, it still hurts, yes, I'm remembering it right now, and that's okay. The memory has less power when you stop fighting it, when you stop treating it like an enemy that needs to be defeated and start treating it like a scar, evidence of something that hurt but evidence also that you survived. I want to talk about collective memories too, because it's not just individual experiences that haunt us. Whole communities, whole societies can be haunted by memories that won't let go. Historical traumas, atrocities, injustices, these get passed down through generations, stay active and painful decades or centuries later. The descendants of enslaved people carry memories of slavery not through direct experience but through family stories, through cultural trauma, through the ongoing effects of historical injustice. Holocaust survivors' children and grandchildren often carry the weight of their ancestors' trauma, affected by memories they never personally experienced but that shaped their family's emotional landscape. Indigenous communities carry memories of genocide and displacement that happened generations ago but still affect their present reality. These collective memories won't let go because they're not just about the past, they're about ongoing consequences, about how the past shaped the present, about unresolved injustice and unhealed wounds. They persist because they need to persist, because forgetting would be a kind of erasure, because remembering is necessary for healing and for preventing repetition. But that doesn't make them any less painful to carry, doesn't make the memories any less heavy or haunting or difficult to live with. Here's something I've thought about a lot regarding persistent memories. They shape who we become in ways we don't always recognize. The memory of hurting Sarah has made me much more careful about humor at others' expense, has made me think before speaking, has made me more aware of how words can wound. It's shaped me into a kinder person, or at least I hope it has. The memory of my fight with my dad has made me quicker to apologize, less willing to let conflicts fester, more aware that any conversation could be the last one. The memory of heartbreak has made me more appreciative of love when I have it, more compassionate toward others going through breakups. These memories hurt, but they've also taught me things, changed me in ways that are maybe necessary, maybe valuable. So there's this question of whether we'd actually want these memories to let go if we could make them. Part of me would love to forget the moment with Sarah, to not carry that shame anymore. But another part of me knows that memory has made me better, that who I am now is partly shaped by the discomfort of remembering who I was then. If the memory let go, would I lose the lesson? Would I lose the growth that came from carrying it? Would I go back to being the person who could make that kind of comment without thinking? I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to find out. But I also think there's a difference between memories that teach us something and shape us positively, and memories that just torment us without offering anything useful. Some memories are stuck on repeat not because they're helping us grow but because our brains can't process them, can't integrate them, can't make sense of them. These are the memories that might actually benefit from professional help, from therapy that can help reprocess them, help the brain file them away as past events instead of present threats, help extract whatever learning or meaning there is and then let the emotional charge dissipate. Because here's the thing, carrying these heavy memories forever isn't noble or necessary or always meaningful. Sometimes they're just heavy, just painful, just exhausting to lug around. And if there are ways to help them let go, to lighten their weight, to decrease their power to hurt you, that's not forgetting, that's not dishonoring what happened, that's just making peace with the past so you can more fully inhabit the present. I think about my friend with the car accident trauma, how she finally got therapy for it after years of just trying to tough it out, trying to just move on, trying to just not think about it. And the therapy didn't make her forget the accident, didn't erase the memory, but it did help the memory settle, helped her brain finally recognize that the danger is past, helped the memory become something that happened to her rather than something that's still happening to her. It let go enough that she could drive without panic again, could hear a loud noise without her heart racing, could sleep without nightmares. The memory is still there, but it finally released its grip on her present life. Let me talk about forgiveness and persistent memories, because I think there's a connection. A lot of the memories that won't let go involve someone hurting us or us hurting someone else. And we're often told that forgiveness is the key to letting these memories go, that if we can just forgive, we can move on. But I think that oversimplifies the relationship between forgiveness and memory. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory, it doesn't make the hurt disappear, it doesn't grant amnesia about what happened. What forgiveness can do, when it's genuine and when it's possible, is change your relationship to the memory, take some of the charge out of it, reduce the ongoing resentment or anger or pain. But forgiveness isn't always possible or appropriate or even desirable. Some things are unforgivable, some people don't deserve forgiveness, and forgiving yourself for things you deeply regret can feel like letting yourself off the hook for something you shouldn't be let off the hook for. So the memory persists, and maybe it should, maybe that ongoing discomfort is appropriate given what happened. The question is whether you can carry it without it crushing you, whether you can acknowledge what happened without being consumed by it, whether you can remember without being imprisoned by the remembering. I haven't forgiven myself for hurting Sarah, not really. I've learned from it, I've changed because of it, I've tried to be better. But forgiveness feels too easy, too much like saying it was okay when it wasn't okay. So I carry the memory, and I let it remind me to be kind, and I accept that this is part of who I am now, someone who did something cruel once and who never wants to do anything like it again. The memory won't let go, and maybe that's okay, maybe I don't need it to. Maybe I just need to carry it more lightly, to let it inform me without defining me. Here's what I think is true about memories that never let go. They're evidence that certain moments matter, that certain experiences have weight and significance that transcends the passage of time. We don't remember everything, we can't, our brains would be overwhelmed. So the fact that certain memories persist, that they stay vivid and charged and accessible while thousands of other moments fade away, that means something. It means these moments touched something deep in us, taught us something important, hurt us in ways we haven't healed from, or revealed something about ourselves or others or the world that we can't unknow. They're also evidence of our humanity, our capacity to be affected by our experiences, our inability to just shrug off pain or shame or regret. A person who could truly let everything go, who could forget every hurt and mistake and trauma, who could move through life without being shaped by their experiences, that wouldn't be growth or strength, that would be a kind of emptiness. Our persistent memories, even the painful ones, are proof that we feel deeply, that we care about how we affect others and how they affect us, that we're capable of learning from our mistakes even if we can't undo them. But they're also sometimes evidence that we're stuck, that we're giving too much power to the past, that we're letting moments that are over continue to define and limit us. And learning to tell the difference, learning to recognize when a memory is serving you by keeping you humble or kind or aware, versus when it's just tormenting you with things you can't change about the past, that's one of the great challenges of being human. I don't have answers for how to make memories let go when they won't. I've tried everything over the years with different persistent memories. Tried suppressing them, tried dwelling on them, tried analyzing them to death, tried forgiving everyone involved, tried therapy, tried time, tried everything I could think of. And some memories have eventually loosened their grip, have faded into softer edges and less frequent visitations. Others are still right there, still sharp, still painful, still showing up uninvited decades later. What I've learned is that fighting the memories, being angry at yourself for not being able to forget, treating them like enemies you need to defeat, that doesn't help. It just adds another layer of suffering on top of the original pain. What helps more is a kind of acceptance, a recognition that yes, this happened, yes, I remember it, yes, it still hurts, and all of that is okay. I don't have to fix it or solve it or make it go away. I can just let it be what it is, a memory, a moment from my past that my brain has decided is important enough to keep. And I can choose what I do with it when it surfaces. I can let it spiral me into shame and regret, or I can acknowledge it and gently redirect my attention to the present. I can let it define me as forever the person who did that thing or said that thing, or I can see it as one moment in a long life, evidence of who I was then but not all of who I am now. I can let it convince me I'm terrible, or I can let it remind me to be better. The memory might never let go, but I can change how I hold it. 29 years later, I still think about Sarah and her braces and the look on her face. I probably always will. It's woven into me now, part of the fabric of who I am. But I've stopped fighting it, stopped wishing desperately that I could forget, stopped beating myself up for still remembering. It's just there, this old scar that still aches sometimes, this reminder of a version of myself I don't want to be. And when it surfaces, I acknowledge it, I feel the old familiar shame, and then I make a choice. I choose to let it make me kinder instead of just making me miserable. I choose to let it teach me instead of just tormenting me. I choose to carry it as part of my story without letting it be the whole story. Because that's all we can do with the memories that never let go. We can't make them disappear, can't rewrite the past, can't undo what was done. But we can choose what we do with them in the present. We can let them crush us or shape us, define us or refine us, keep us stuck or keep us humble. We can carry them as burdens or as lessons, as evidence of our worst selves or as motivation to be our best selves. The memories might never let go, but we can learn to hold them differently, to make peace with their persistence, to find meaning in their weight. And maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need these memories to disappear. Maybe we just need to learn to live with them in a way that doesn't consume us, in a way that honors both the reality of what happened and the reality of who we've become since. The past is past, we can't change it. But the present is ours, and the future is ours, and the memories that never let go don't have to determine what we do with either one. They're just memories, after all. Powerful, persistent, painful maybe, but still just memories. They can tell us where we've been, but they don't have to tell us where we're going. That's up to us, and it always has been.